So what's your consumer IQ? Oh my God, it's time to take out a piece of paper and a pen. Okay. Take out a piece of paper and a pen, just write down 5 numbers. 1, 2, 3A, 3B, 4, and 5. This is the problem when we work at 10:30 on Friday night instead of doing what we really want to be doing. Okay, I will course correct here. Okay. First thing I want you to estimate. This is back in 2009. My guess would be it'd be no different in 2009 than it would be 2010. I just haven't gone to the library to look. In 2009, what percent of the beer sold in America was imported? What percent of the beer sold in America was imported? Okay. In 2009, what percent of families bought Jell-O? 3, what percent of cookie sales are Pepperidge Farm? 3B, what percent of households bought canned chili? You know, canned chili is like Hormel or things like that. That's good eating. What, number 4 is what percent of bottled water was Perrier? Little green stuff. And then last, it's not a percentage, it's a number. How many hot dogs do the average family eat in 2009? And the average family, this is the average family, one or more people in the household. So it could be anything from, you know, mom and pop to, the Walton family. Okay, be just a couple, or it could be like tons and tons of people. Okay? Just really just write down the first number that comes to your mind. Okay, it's not like this is the LSAT or something. 31 or 32. I can't make up my mind. Okay. What percent of the beer sold in the United States last year was imported? Yeah. 5%? Somebody else? 35? 70? Yeah. Yep. 69%. We're just talking about, we're talking, it's like The Price is Right. I'm not going to go over it. 69.9. Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, 3.9%. No! How many people had exactly 3.9%? 9 people raised their hand. What percent of families bought Jell-O? What percent of families? Yeah, Megan, isn't it? 60%. Somebody else? Yes? 20%? 4%? 4%? Actually, they're very good. 61%. Wow. Wow. Number 3A, what percent of cookie sales are Pepperidge Farm cookies in America? Yes. 49%? 12? 30%? You know, it's crazy. Pardon me, please. 7%. What percent of households bought canned chili? The goodness of canned chili up there? 30%? 12%. Because that stuff is just terrible. It is just nasty, nasty, nasty stuff. So that's what just kind of floors me. It would end up being 44%. 44%? Who are these people? Taking their snack to school. I don't even need to warm it up. What percent of the bottled water was Perrier? 3%? What's that? 11%?
1.
Yeah, very, very good. 1.1%. That's crazy. Now, who was pretty accurate with all these? Pretty good? Who were you too high or were you too low?
I was scratching my ear, by the way. I said 70% for the first one. I definitely was not accurate.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, there's a reason why, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Were you too high? Were you too low? How many people were too high in some of them? How many people were too low in some of them? How many people were high and low on them? But on average, I was perfect. Well, how many people, for that percent of beer that was imported, how many people had more than 3.9%? Wow. Okay.
Canadian beer?
Yeah. So I know. We should just treat them like the 51st state, but I was trying to. Oh yeah. There's a lot more, a whole lot more than that. How many people had Jell-O? How many people had more than 61%? Do you like Jell-O? Did you like Jell-O? Do you like Jell-O? How many people had more than 7% for Pepperidge Farm cookies? So do you see any pattern to your biases? See? Yeah.
Like maybe the more you like something, the more like the percent might be higher.
Yeah. Tell me your name, please.
Maria?
Maria? Are you from Indiana?
Yeah.
Oh, what part of Indiana?
South Bend.
Oh, very good. Very good. Yeah, you're exactly right, Maria. And what happens is that if we really, really, really like something, what do we assume? Everybody does. Okay, if we think something's just really ghastly, like canned chili, same thing. If we could do the same thing if we talked about. We asked people about the can. What's the most famous canned Asian foods that you can buy as a brand? Yeah, Le Choy. Same thing if we were to ask people, what percent of the America buys Le Choy each year? We'd go, oh God, I don't think anybody buys that. But it's something like, it's over 30%, but I don't know if it's 31 or something like percent. But since we don't eat this, we just assume everybody else doesn't. So most of us probably said, if you were to ask me about the percent of beer that people bought that was imported, what would we do? Where does anchoring relate to this? Yeah. And we'd anchor on that number. We'd say, well, I think about 2/3 of what I buy is imported. So I think for the rest of the world, or for the rest of America, it's probably 2/3 also. The same thing if we, actually don't get something else. Now what this is called, it's called me marketing. And I'm going to flip ahead just a little bit to take a look at this. What happens is we have this tremendous tendency to generalize and project from our own experiences. You go, man, I love it, so therefore everybody else does also. It's kind of we're really bad at doing this with music and with movies also. And I know if you tend to like a movie, you'll go to somebody and you'll say, yeah, man, you just really love it, Final Destination, Part 5, it is just so cool, Mom. You'll think it's really neat. And we have a hard time. We have a hard time putting other people's preferences in line. Last Tuesday or Wednesday, or I guess it was last Wednesday after class, I went and heard a tremendous musical artist, and the person who followed him was a saxophone player who did a lot of circular breathing. And I don't know if you know what circular breathing is, but it's the sort of thing that you essentially can play constantly because of a technique you use to do this. And Danila, the videographer, was actually there also. And I remember I got back and I was talking to my wife and I said, God, this person's really, really, really cool. And I was going on and on and on and on and on about it. And I said, oh, you would have loved it. And she goes, really, this is just a saxophone player who doesn't take a breath, though, right? I'm like, yeah. I got it. Okay. But we are tremendously, we are tremendously biased into thinking and wanting to project our own things on other people. It was interesting that when I first got out of professor school, I was a professor at the Tuck School of Business down at Dartmouth, and I was getting ready for my first to teach one of my first MBA classes, and it was all case study, and the case study that was happening to use was one on Jell-O brand gelatin. Okay, and so I stayed up to like maybe 4 a.m. in the morning working on this thing, and I plotted things out so that the opening person I would call on, okay, the opening team I would call on, anything they said, I would know how to lead it in a really productive way. Okay, and I remember having a map of like typing paper taped up in my house of how different questions could be asked and where it would lead. And I remember calling on this guy who subsequently went on to be the valedictorian 2 years later of the MBA program. And I called him, and his name was Andrew, and I said, Andrew, what did you decide your team would do to Jell-O, to do regarding this case? And what he said was, there's the one thing that, of course, I hadn't planned anybody said. He said, he goes, nobody I really know eats Jell-O, so I think what we do is we just sell the company. And I thought, this is really a smart guy, too. And I'm like, wow, it's growing at the rate of like 11% per year, and you want to sell it because you don't like Jell-O? And I think it really gets at this issue that we see over and over again, whether it be the Super Bowl, whether it be movies or whatever, that if we see an ad in the Super Bowl, our assumption as to whether it's good or not isn't whether it actually sell anything. Our assessment as to how good it is whether we like it. Okay? And that's great, because liking it might relate to it being effective if the target market is exactly us. But it seldom is. And we've got to be really careful about projecting that.